Hi guys, and welcome to China Perspective. My name is 𝗍𝗶𝗿𝗂𝗧𝗍𝗍, and you may know me as a German recruiter in Asia. While my main place of business is in China, I'm spending a few weeks each year in Thailand, as well as we are supporting international firms here with their senior and executive recruiting needs. The different countries in Asia are at different development stages and have different governments, of course, and labor laws, which sometimes can be confusing to companies. So today, I want to share a bit more about what foreign companies in Thailand should know in case things go south with their employees. Thailand's economy is powered by its people, millions of workers across factories, offices, farms, and the service sector. And today we're breaking down termination and labor disputes in Thailand, why they happen, what the law says, and how both employers and employees can stay protected. So let's start with the law itself, employment contracts in Thailand. So in Thailand, there are two types of employment contracts. Both contract types must comply with the Labor Protection Act 2541 from the year 1998 and its amendments. First, we have fixed-term contracts. These are for specific projects or seasonal work, typically no longer than 2 years. They do expire automatically and no severance is owed unless extended improperly. So if you think, oh, great, that sounds better for me as a company, then please, note that fixed-term contracts are strictly regulated and are intended for temporary or project-based employment only. Misuse of fixed-term contracts for permanent work can lead to legal reclassification as independent contracts. The other type of contract is called permanent contracts. These offer ongoing employment and more legal protection, but also come with stricter rules around notice, severance, and termination. These are much more common, but also have greater protection for the employee and greater obligations for the firm. But you know what? No matter what contract, things sometimes don't work out, and employee and employers find themselves in a labor dispute. So despite legal protections, labor disputes are still common here in Thailand. Here are a few top triggers. Number one, we have wrongful termination and severance pay. So if you're fired without notice or cause, that's wrongful dismissal. Thai law requires either advance notice or severance pay, up to 400 days of salaries for employees with 20+ years of service. Every employee who's been with a firm for more than 119 days or more is entitled to have at least 30 days of severance pay. Some companies are trying to dodge it, leading straight to the labor court. Number two is overtime and working hour violations. Working hours are legally capped at 8 hours per day, 48 hours per week. Anything beyond that is paid overtime. But actually many workers are pushed to work longer hours but unpaid. So that is illegal according to the law. But then again, Thailand is a big country and the workforce and industries are in very different sectors, with the service industry being very, very established. So realistically, while the legal framework is robust, enforcement can vary a lot. Larger companies and multinational enterprises here typically comply due to regulatory scrutiny and the risk of penalties. However, in smaller businesses or more informal sectors, enforcement may be less consistent, with occasional reports of underpayment or non-payment of overtime. But the Thai government is really working on making this more tight. So, for example, there's a new regulation specifically addressing overtime for security guards, effective next year in 2026. Number three is social security and benefits abuse. Employers must contribute to social security for healthcare, pensions, and unemployment. So what happens when the worst case appears? Let's talk about termination and the legal process and employer duties. If an employer, which means a company, ends a contract, especially a permanent contract, here is what must happen legally. You need a written termination letter, you need a proper notice or salary paid in lieu, you need severance based on tenure, you need all unpaid wages, overtime, leave to be paid, you need a tax withholding certificate, you need a job certificate on request, you need to notify Social Security Office and maybe immigration if it's a foreign employee, and you need to settle the Provident Fund if applicable. So if you don't know, the Provident Fund in Thailand is a voluntary long-term retirement savings scheme established jointly by employers and employees. It aims to provide financial security for workers through combined contributions from both parties, typically ranging somewhere between 2% to 15% of the employee's wage, so higher rates can be negotiated with ministerial approval. So next, let's look at notice period and severance pay breakdown. So by law, employers must give 30 days notice or one pay cycle before termination. Otherwise, they must pay in lieu. So that means that even if you're giving only 1 day notice, you still have to pay for the whole month. And here's how to calculate severance pay. The amount of the severance depends on how long the employee was with the firm. For the time between 120 days to 1 year, you have to pay 30 days wage. Between 1 and 3 years in the company, 90 days. Between 3 years and 6 years, 180 days wage, and 6 years to 10 years, 240 days wage. If the employee has stayed between 10 or 20 years, it's even 300 days wage, and over 20 years, it is 400 days wages. And how is these days wages calculated? Quite simple, to be honest. It's a base salary plus fixed allowance based on the last 12 months period. What is important to know is that severance pay has to be paid out within 3 days of the date of termination and may be subject to income tax for the former employee. Another important point is that not all terminations are legal. Some terminations break the law outright. So let's look at the 2 most common examples. Number 1, we have wrongful or illegal dismissal, and number 2, we have what's called constructive dismissal. Constructive dismissal in Thailand differs from wrongful and illegal dismissal primarily in how the employment relationships end and the employer's conduct leading to the termination. So constructive dismissal in Thailand occurs when an employee resigns because the employer's contract, such as unilateral changes to salary or job duties, harassment, non-payment of wages, or unsafe working conditions, makes continued employment not tolerable, effectively forcing the employee to quit. So I give an example. If an employer drastically reduces an employee's salary without consent or creates a hostile work environment, the employee may claim constructive dismissal. This will mean the employee can claim either compensation or to be reinstated in his or her job. Wrongful dismissal happens when the employer directly terminates the employee without just cause, proper notice, or severance pay, violating procedural or substantive labor protection under Thai law. For instance, firing an employee without any warning or legitimate reason and failing to pay severance constitutes wrongful dismissal. In this case, an employee may go to court. Illegal or unfair dismissal refers to termination by the employer without lawful cause as defined in Section 119 of the Labor Protection Act, or for prohibited reasons such as discrimination, retaliation, and without following due process. So another example is, for example, dismissing an employee because of their union activities or pregnancies, both of which is illegal under Thai labor law. In this case, the employee may go to court. So let's talk about how that works, going to court in Thailand. When disputes can't be solved internally, they tend to go to the labor court. Employees do not need a lawyer, but legal help is highly advised. The court examines contracts, finances, and behaviors on both sides. Severe cases may go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And please note that Thai courts encourage mediation first. Compromise is much preferred over litigation. So here are some additional facts which are really good to know. For example, Thailand experiences way over 10,000 labor dispute cases annually, as reported by the Thai Office of the Judiciary over the past 5 years. This reflects an active role of employees asserting their rights under the country's protective labor laws. Unfair termination clauses, like what we just spoke about, are very common. One of the most frequent causes of labor disputes is claims of unfair or wrongful termination. Thailand's labor laws are strongly pro-employee, and courts generally disfavor termination without just cause, leading to considerable financial and operational challenges for employers. And also, the law is being updated constantly. Just now in 2025, updates to the Labor Protection Act will introduce new employee protections related to security deposits and welfare, signaling ongoing efforts to enhance worker rights and employer obligations. So if you are responsible for Thailand in an HR role, this is really important for you to know. So Thailand is considered a pro-employee jurisdiction with labor laws that heavily favor employee rights, especially regarding termination and severance. Employers, especially foreign and local businesses, face risks of costly disputes due to the strict employee protections and the cultural emphasis on fair treatment. Designing clear employment policies and understanding legal standards are critical to minimizing risks, and the law keeps changing. Recent updates to Thai labor law are making the system tougher, and fairer. So, for example, some reforms include a mandatory severance payment for retirement, stricter punishment for illegal termination, extended protections for maternity or business leave, moral damages allowed for emotional distress. And please make sure you do use a good labor lawyer here in Thailand. If you need a recommendation, write me an email. My email is below in the description, and I can refer you to a few good and trusted partners who've been here in the market for years. My firm does not offer legal services. Additionally, what you need to know about termination rules, severance payment, and so on, it is also good to know about the legal situation for special situations and post-termination rules. And this is helpful because circumstances have special rules. So, for example, relocation. If your company moves and you can't follow, special severance pay may apply. Or if you're downsizing or automating, so employees in such a case must get 60-day notice or compensation. Also non-compete clauses. These are legal, but only reasonable in time, location, and scope. And then there's the severance pay tax. The first 300,000 Thai baht is tax-free. The rest is taxable, but you may be eligible for deductions based on service year. So what I'm trying to show is that the Thai labor law is complex and quite mature. So for you as a company, as well as an employee, it's really important to know your rights and to avoid disputes. And here's how to avoid ending up in court. So if you're a company, of course, always follow rules on wages, hours, and benefits. Provide proper notice and documentation. Document everything. Be transparent with contracts and terminations. If you're an employee, know your rights and also document everything. Speak up early or use legal or mediation channels if needed. Keep copies of contracts, of pay slips, and of communication such as an email. Guys, thank you for watching, and I hope this was useful for you. Please remember that I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. If you do have any legal issues here in Thailand, please make sure to speak to a legal service provider here in the country, and ideally not back home in the headquarters where you are. I know that's a big trend because it's more convenient to speak in headquarter language, but please don't. If you need a referral for a good lawyer here, let me know and I'll connect you. Thailand is a very diverse and interesting economy that is developing rapidly. Due to its proximity to both China and other Asian countries, many companies eye the country with interest, and I think we will be seeing more of Thailand in the years to come. Guys, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you liked it. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more about China or Asia in general. Thanks, guys. Bye.